Hey, everybody, let's resume our afternoon program. And right now, I would like to welcome Anton. I think all of you, or most of you, know Anton as the famous Anton in Japan. And he's going to do his speech. So go ahead, Anton.
Thank you very much, Blanca. Konnichiwa, minasan. How are you doing? How was lunch? Are you excited to hear about Akiyas and DIY in Japan? Yes. Are you excited to hear about Akiyas and DIY in Japan? Yoo-hoo! Thank you so much. How do I do this? Is this connected or not? It is. So today, I will first of all figure out how I'm doing this. This one. Up, down, okay. Sorry about that. In today's presentation, I will talk a little bit about what an Akiya is. How do I find... How do you find an Akiya, and how I've found my houses here in Japan, and how to buy the best Akiya. What's going on, guys? All right, DIY, guys. Okay, let's take it from the beginning again. What's an Akiya? How do I find my Akiyas? How to buy the best Akiya? And how to renovate cool on a budget, because that's what I do. Hup. Yeah, so what I do YouTube since 1 year ago as Anton in Japan. I used to do YouTube in Japanese before. Basically the same things, but in Japanese. I also do long-term rentals, and I also do short-term rentals. I'm a guest favorite on AirBnb with my Sangenjaya house, 4.98 in rating, and I'm very proud of that. And I've also done modeling for about 13 years, and that brought me to Japan. So I have a track record of being in Japan for 5 years, 13 years modeling, and 31 years of doing DIY and not real estate, but DIY. Should we show the screen? This one's better? Thank you. My work has been featured in Vogue, Daily Mail, Fuji TV, and free houses in Japan. The true story of how I make my... Should we start over? Is it working now? Okay. So how was your lunch, guys? Yoo-hoo! Great. So you all know what an Akiya is, right? You all know what an Aki Shih Tzu is, and you all know who I am, I hope. This is my most viral project online, Sangenjaya House. During renovation, after renovation, this entire renovation cost me about 8 million yen, including everything. From getting it filled with stuff into a renovated, furnished, AirBnB licensed. I have the Ryokan license that Tracy were talking about earlier. So 8 million yen to get this from a total shithole into something that generates me money. And I really enjoy doing it as well. We've been in operation for about 11 months now. We've had about 45 guest groups, and 43 out of 45 have rated us 5 stars. So applaud, please. Thank you very much. 8 million yen to create this, but while saying that, this also took about 1,200 hours of my time. So a lot of people think that buying and renovating Akiyas, it's, yeah, you just pay someone to do it. There's a cheap house, you pay someone to do it, and then you're gonna make money. But that's not really reality. You have to spend time, you have to spend energy, and you have to actually be there and know what you're doing. Like, paying someone to do this kind of work, first of all, it won't be as the way you want it. Communication-wise, and also like cultural differences. Like, there's no way a Japanese carpenter would ever think in this way that I'm thinking. I'm Swedish, maybe like an American person like has a different design sense. It really depends on what you want to do and how you want to do things. And by paying someone, you would most likely pay a premium. I paid with my time and my kind of knowledge, I would say. So this is from my book, Aspects Japanese People Care About When Looking for a Home. Obviously rent, area, 54.7%, distance from station, commuting time to work, layout, size, environment, move-in fees, and then also year built. Most of you are probably familiar with that. Japanese houses, they depreciate in value. I buy houses that have already depreciated, really. And then I maintain them, I make them nice again, which means that the houses, they're already at the lowest price point that you can buy them. With that said, I create value, but I'm not sure I could sell them. That's the biggest difference from doing this job in Japan versus doing it in Europe or the US. Even though you create value, I'm not sure you can actually sell it to a premium price. But earthquakes, natural disasters, there's a lot of things you got to take in considerations as well. And that's why Japanese and the housing market here in Japan is very different. These numbers are pretty shocking, I think. 8.5 million abandoned houses, about 10 million of them. And in 2033, almost 22, hello? Hello? Million abandoned houses. Can I go without this one? I cannot? Okay. So 2033, about 22 million abandoned homes, empty homes, that are ready to be torn down, ready to be renovated. And this problem is called in Japanese Akiya mondai, the problem with Akiyas, the problem with empty houses. It's a huge societal issue, and if you think about it if you follow the money, who runs the real estate industry in Japan? It's the developers and the brokers. The developers, they make money creating new houses. And the brokers, they make money selling expensive houses. So if you sell a house for $5,000, the broker's fee would be a few $100s. And it's not worth your time. It won't be. So you'd rather niche yourself and sell something more expensive. That's how the broker industry works here. And I get it. normal. You gotta follow the money. With that said, there are still opportunities in making money buying and selling these old Akiyas. This is from my friend Isono-san. This graph is also found in my book. Isono-san, he buys the cheapest house on the market, he renovates it really cheap, and then he sells them as investment units. I don't have any experience with buying and selling. I have experience with buying, renovate, and rent out. But if you look at Isono-san's track record, you can see that there is actually a market for this. This is not in central Tokyo. He buys them in Chiba, Osaka, and I think he has... Konnichiwa. He has a few houses in Saitama as well. But this is totally doable. And usually when Japanese investors are looking for these investment properties, they're looking for between 10 and 15% yield. And if he just keeps renting them out, he will have a yield of about 20%. This takes a lot of know-how, and you're not really creating beautiful houses. You're creating like normal houses. This is the Sangenjaya house as well, before, during, and then after. And I think the main question is, so I do social media, and I have a pretty big account, and every day people are asking me how they buy Akiyas from abroad. And I don't really get why you would want to do that. Like, you come to Japan, you spend time in the area, like there are 10 million abandoned homes. Like, and there are cheap housing almost everywhere, unless you're in central Tokyo, can be more competitive. But you got to feel the area, and you got to know what you're buying into. If you see a house online, oh, that's it's a beautiful house, and then you buy it. Then that means you have to invest your time, your energy, and your money in an area you know nothing about. So why do you want to buy an Akiya? Do you want to buy it for a personal use or as an investment? I think that's the main thing. The second thing is, where do you want to spend time, and where do you want to be, and why do you want to be there? If it's an area in Chiba by the water, if it's in Enoshima, if it's in Kyoto, like where do you want to spend time? I'm from Stockholm, and I would never buy a house in a different city in Stockholm, in Sweden, that I've never been to. And I think just because it's cheap, it kind of tricks a lot of people, because the housing markets all over the world has just exploded. You cannot afford a house in your own country, in your own city. But in Japan, there are cheap housing. And I think it's pretty fascinating that it's gaining a lot of traction, and I think Japan needs it. I'm not a politician, I know nothing about immigration politics, but it's gaining a lot of traction. And there's a lot of foreigners buying and renovating Akiyas right now for various reasons. If you are thinking about doing this, is it for a personal use or is it for investment? And why do you want to buy an Akiya? I think that's the main question to ask yourself. So how do you buy an Akiya then? Has anyone here bought an Akiya before? 1, 2, 3. Not too many. Has any one of you bought a house in Japan, not an Akiya? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15 almost. Round numbers. So how do you buy an Akiya? Akiya banks. I have no experience with Akiya banks, but that's what media is telling you. If you want to buy an Akiya, go to an Akiya bank. But I know no one who's used an Akiya bank to buy a house. Sumo or At Home is where I'm sourcing my houses and where I'm looking for housing. Also, my Sangenjaya house, I found it through footwork. I live on the same street, and I knew that this house was abandoned. It was empty. So I knocked on the neighbor's door and asked for the contact information. And the process of actually acquiring it after seeing it I saw it one time for 5 minutes. There was a lot of things left behind. But in order to not it's an infected situation in a way. A lot of old belongings from the previous owners left there. And you don't want to ask too many questions. You don't want to upset the seller in a way. It's a balance, really. But we talked for about 13, 14 months. And then finally, I could involve a broker friend of mine who could help out with the entire transaction. We could probably have done it on like seller, buyer, but I prefer to have a broker, a pro in between. Japan is the country of middlemen, and I think this is what you should do as well, once you have contact with the seller. When I say footwork, Japan is a country of middlemen. Footwork, you see an Akiya. There are many ways you can find out who owns this Akiya. You can go to the local municipality and get a register. Who owns this Akiya? You can ask a neighbor, or you can do as a friend of mine did. There was an area in Chiba where one house it was an Akiya, clearly an Akiya, but someone was taking care of the garden. So he reached out to the gardener in that area, because clearly the Akiya owner was paying someone to take care of the garden. So he reached out to the garden and asked, who is the gardener, who is the owner of this house? And the gardener gave him the contact information. And then he called them up. Hey, I know your house is empty. Can I buy it? And the owner was just paying like the gardener every month just to keep track of his garden. And decided to sell it very cheap to my friend. So I think this, footwork and sumo at home, those would be my recommendations if you're thinking about buying an Akiya. Also local real estate agents. You see, this is the lowest on the market. No real estate agent will show you these houses. So if you go to a real estate agent in, let's say, a small town in Chiba, they have these houses hidden under piles of paperwork. So you need to like poke them almost. Where is my cheap house? And they might like show you something that they've had in their registry for 7, 8 years that they almost forgotten about. Because this is nothing to them. This is not how they make money. They tried to sell it 7, 8 years ago. And now it's just a number in their registry, really. So how do you buy the best Akiya? You do your research. You invest in the community where you want your Akiya to be. You contribute to that community, and you make it easy for the seller if you're taking the footwork path. With that said, you need to kind of narrow down your area, where you want to spend your time, where you want to invest in your, like, where you want to invest your life in. Do you want to live in Chiba, or do you want to live in Aomori, or do you want to live in Hokkaido? Like, it's a huge gap, really. And by contributing, I mean, if you buy a house, you're essentially buying into that community. There are certain responsibilities. You have to keep your house nice. You have to make your neighbors happy. You need to come with gifts. You need to, maybe I threw away my neighbor's sodaigomi. She had like a huge IKEA table and chairs this Tuesday. So I just reached out, hey, do you want me to take care of your sodaigomi? And they become very happy. Like, you give and you take and you contribute, and like opportunities will arise, especially in the countryside. If you buy a house there, like I'm almost 100% sure that someone is going to try and sell you the house next to it as well. Like, you buy into a community, and like if you spend 10 years there, like you might as well have 10 houses if you have friends, or you want to do minpaku, or like people will come to you if you actually create value for the community. So this is the same Sangenjaya house, and this was from Asahi Shimbun this January. And it said, it's the Japanese version, and it said the previous owner said, do you really want to buy this shithole, basically? And I did, and I turned it into something nice. So what you want might not be perceived as something valuable for the seller. So you have to actually show them that you're interested in what you want to buy. And I don't think they would, like, the house would have been empty, even to this day, if I didn't approach them. So do your research, contribute, invest in your community, make it easy for the seller, and then opportunities will arise. And that tenfold. Like, if you spend time and if you actually are there, like, you'll be surprised how much you'll be given. But you can't do this from abroad. You really can't. So these are some red flags I'm looking at when looking at houses. I've looked at hundreds of Akiya houses. I like looking at old houses and see opportunities and see what can I do with this squared room? What can I do with this house? Can I turn down these walls? Can I move the kitchen? What can you do? Like, just let your imagination like thrive. So a tilting house, it's inevitable. Old houses in Japan, they will tilt. Most of them are made out of wood. But it's to a degree. If the house is tilting this much, I wouldn't do much about it. But if it's just a few degrees, I would potentially buy it. And you can usually see on the shojis or the fusumas, if they're easy to open or close, or the windows, that's a really good sign. Termites, it's inevitable as well. Most old houses are made out of wood. And no matter how much you treat for termites, they will be there. It's just a matter of how much have they eaten, really. Water leaks, stay away. Not good for health and not good for the house. It can be easy fixed, but it could be potentially a very expensive mistake. Trash as well. Never underestimate trash disposal in Japan. This will cover about 10% of your budget, potentially, even more if you're in central Tokyo. You can't burn trash. You cannot just dig it and like hide it in your backyard. You could potentially hide it in the attic of your house, but I've never done that, but it's a potential solution. You got to be creative. Foundation issues as well. Now my second house that I'm doing in Shinjuku, I'm also putting in concrete like under the entire house. It gives some stability for earthquakes, and it also, termites won't get in as easily. It's also good for moisture is not coming in as easily in the house. But you never know. After a few years of wear and tear, like it's an old house and you are maintaining it, but even then, like after 5 or 10 years, like who knows what will happen. So people hate Akiyas, especially Japanese people. They look bad. There are animals nesting. There are hakubishin. There are wild cats living there. Tanukis, risk for squatters. I found a squatter in a house that I went to see one time with my friend Isozaki-san right here. And there are also fire hazards. Japan has a history of fires. And if you buy an Akiya, you won't have that much of land, I guess. And if an Akiya catches fire, the likelihood of your Akiya catching fire too, or your house, is pretty high as well. And just yesterday, I had to change my presentation. That was why I was late. Sorry, Ziv. But just yesterday, I got a message from an Akiya investor that I know. She was here at the last summit as well, Saito-san. She does Akiya investments in Saitama and in Chiba. And she bought a house about 3 or 4 months ago in Oami Shirasato that she just had it renovated and ready to be rented out about a month ago. And she sent me this. なんと大網白里の物件、リフォーム完成直後に It means that there was an Akiya next to her Akiya, but she renovated it into this. But the Akiya next to her house caught fire. And her house burnt down as well. This was yesterday. She sent me this. So this is another huge risk with Akiyas in the Japanese society. With this said, though, like I guess she's a pro. This is probably her 15th or 20th house. So she knows how to get the right insurances. So she probably bought this house for 2 million yen, and I think she'll probably get 15, 20 million on her insurance. That would be my guess. Maybe even more, potentially, you know. So she made money out of like her house burning down. But like even then, it's scary. It's really, really scary. And Akiyas with old electricity, there are earthquakes, there are fires. It's a lot of things that can happen if you don't maintain and take care of your house. So, this is what I do. DIY, do it yourself. And that's making my renovation so cheap. Yeah, it's fun. DIY. How to renovate cool and cheap. You pay with your time. Do we have any other DIYers here? Anyone enjoy DIYing? Yes, a lot of them. So what do you enjoy? Yes. That's not DIY, you're a pro. So what kind of DIY do you enjoy? Why is DIY so fun?
You can do it cheap with a good sense of luxury.
Yes, that's a good answer. Sorry, Blanca. Anyone else? Why is DIY so much fun? Creativity. Great. These three things are what I prioritize in my houses and my apartments. Sunlight, natural material, and plants. If we had great sunlight here, some plants, and some stones, or like this, everything would look good with just these three elements. Especially if you're in a big city like Tokyo. And new equals good. Do you agree? Do you agree?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yes, no? I don't agree. But I think a lot of Japanese people do. And a lot of Japanese people are looking for brand new houses, brand new homes. Even when you buy an old toilet, you buy an old air conditioner, it says the year the air conditioner was made, 2020. And I've traveled and I've lived kind of all over the world, and this is the only country where I've seen that. New is good, but I don't agree. It can be true, but not all the time. So, if you have sustainability in mind, reduce, reuse, and recycle, everything will become cheap. I'm not saying you should like redo and you should not exchange a pillar for like something you found in the trash, you know, like. But you can buy a recycled aircon. You can use wood that you found somewhere for paneling. You can use your grandma's old sheets. Like there are many ways you can just reuse, and if you have sustainability in mind, like you will create a very personal house and a very personal home, like with your own imagination. For my new project, someone reached out to me on LinkedIn and asked me, they were changing office space in Yokohama, and they had 200 square meters of floorboards that they were going to throw away. And these floorboards were 2 years old. And throwing away 200 square meters of floor, that is, I don't know, a few $1,000s, right? And this is potential, like this is high quality A-grade wood. And I said, I'll take it all. And I think my house, my new project will look fantastic with this. But I won't need 200 square meters. So if someone needs some floorboards for the new Akiya, please let me know. I have 200 square meters, or will get 200 square meters. And this is potentially a pretty big post when you renovate. Like hardwood flooring would be, for the Sangenjaya house, I used oak, and that was about $2,000 for the entire house. I got it cheap, but this time I'm getting it for free. Even better. Things that were going to the trash, but now they're going into my luxury Airbnb instead. I use these places to source material. Yahoo Auction, Mercari, and also Monotaro. Monotaro is great for building supplies. Mercari is good for used things. Also Facebook Marketplace can be a good resource. But Yahoo Auction, you can find incredible deals. I bought like huge brand new double pane windows for $100, things that are like $2,000-3,000 brand new. And these are things from showroom units, so they're basically not even used. But you have to pay with your time, finding them, pay for the freight, because these are 100 kilo. Even my TV, Bang & Olufsen TV in the Sangenjaya house was from Yahoo Auction. That's 1.5 million yen brand new. I bought it for 9,000 yen. But it's a 110 kilo big TV, so it was pretty hard to get it inside the house. But now it's just standing there, so yeah. It's a design piece as well. So people who really know and like Scandinavian design, they know what this is. But to other people, it's just an old, big relic. But it's a good entertainment system. It really is. So these are things that I like with DIY, the things I like the most. Things you can see result with. If you're just leveling a floor for 3 days, like every evening you're like, oh, what did I do today? Because you can't see what you've actually have done. And you have back pain and you feel like an old man. But with these things, new flooring, wallpaper, paint, jodipatto, like just things that you can actually see a difference at the end of the day. And these things I always get my girlfriend to join as well, because I've tricked her into liking these things as well. Getting familiar with tools, these are also a great way, because it's not really dangerous to do anything with these things. New flooring is also not the best for your back. Paint is probably the most beginner-friendly DIY work. And what is the most important ingredient?
Love.
Love. It's a good answer. Anyone else? Sunlight?
Determination.
No. Almost.
Yeah, vision.
Have fun. Yoo-hoo! And if you have fun, one activity is going to lead to another. You start with the painting, and then you actually get invested in this wall. We're gonna make this wall nice. And then while you're actually making this wall nice, you'll see something else, and then you'll just gradually move into the next. That was how I started. You start with one activity, and then you just learn more and more and more. I don't have a degree. I don't have any. 10 minutes. Thank you, Siv. I don't have a degree. I'm just self-taught. I have passion, and I have fun. I do my research, and I spend a lot of time into doing what I love doing. And that is buying and renovating cheap houses, now in Japan. And you better be safe than sorry. Don't touch electricity, plumbing, gas, or you shouldn't destroy things in your house. Beams or pillar without consulting a pro. So you can always consult Blanca over here. She knows what she's doing. She has engineers and she has carpenters. Don't ask people online. Don't do it. You'll pay a high price in the end. I'm telling you. Electricity is dangerous, but for the house itself, plumbing is potentially the most expensive mistake you can make. If you have a slow water leak that you won't actually realize that you have, it could be very, very costly. And I've seen it happen. Not to my own houses, but to friends' houses. And to my dad's house, his apartment, they had to live without a kitchen for 3 or 4 months because someone upstairs was DIY plumbing. Energy efficiency. This is really hard with old Japanese houses. To make your house airtight, double glazed windows and insulation, it's not a thing here. And if you build houses that are supposed to be torn down 30, 40 years later, yeah, these houses are not maintained, so to say. And there are ways to do this. I've always put in insulation in the floor and in the walls. You sometimes have to compromise what is going to look good, what is going to look bad. I like to show off these old Japanese details in my houses. And if you cover everything up with insulation, you can't really. You can show these old beams and pillars, but in the ceiling, I don't have any insulation. So summers are getting pretty hot, and winters can get pretty cold. I do have air conditioning and floor heating as well. But these are things that you will have a hard time with buying and renovating an Akiya. This is what I do. I renovate in a Japanese Scandinavian style, Japandi. And if you look at this, this is just a piece of wood. Sunlight, green, piece of wood, and then some maybe homemade ceramics, and then some Akiya furniture. So a combination of Japanese and Scandinavian aesthetics. The Japanese style is calm, casual, and organic. And as you see, like, it's just, maybe they found this in Sodaigomi. There's a countertop from the home center, some plants, like some white paint. Like, it doesn't take much to create a nice home. It really doesn't. My tips to create a nice home is to find inspiration around you. What do you like? What do you find beautiful? Like, in what environment are you happy? You create a mood board. I've worked with a lot of big fashion houses, and all designers in the world, they all do this. Okay, this collection, what are we doing? And they have big mood boards. These are pictures, and these are energies, and these are things that they like. And I would advise you to do the same. Pinterest, Instagram, there are many ways you can do this. You can find inspiration even right in front of you at any moment, really. And also spend time in the house you're renovating. Your original thought, like when you decide you're going to renovate a house, and you have an idea of how you'll renovate it the moment you step into the house. But the more time you spend in that house, your ideas will change. If it's for an investment unit, maybe it doesn't really matter. But if it's for yourself, the more time you spend in the house, your ideas will change. So the initial idea you had when entering the place for the first time will change over time. Sorry about the picture, it's a bit scary. Akiya and Renovation. This is my new project in between Nakano and Shinjuku. So this will be my Japandi house number 2. And I've worked on it for about 1.5 months. I posted a video on YouTube last week about it. Hopefully, this is the best house. It looks dark, shitty, old, but this is the best house. 5. This is the best house I've ever bought in Japan. Everything is straight. The foundation is there. The windows are moving smoothly. There is a 5-meter ceiling height in the second floor. Thank you very much. Q&A. Tracy.
Yeah, no, I've got a question from the pre-survey.
Yes.
And maybe you can answer this. Why does it seem like it's mostly foreign people doing these house renovations? What is it like? You touched on it a little bit about what Japanese people value and what foreigners value. What's your opinion? Because you're in the business.
I think a lot of Japanese people are doing this as well. I think there's a language and cultural barrier as well. So there are a lot of Japanese people doing this as well. It's just that the information doesn't reach an English-speaking audience.
They're YouTubing in English.
Yes.
And so they're doing it, but
It's a huge gap.
they're just not YouTubing.
Exactly. And I also think that the big players in the Japanese market, they're not really into renovation. They're into newly produced things. So all good talent, they don't really necessarily end up in the renovation space. They end up in the newly produced, in Shinjuku space. Yes, questions?
Do you figure out the zoning permit, like licenses and stuff, before you even look at the properties, or is that something you do after?
Both yes and no. Like the Sangenjaya house, I was just lucky. I have a ryokan license, and I initially made the house to live in. But my girlfriend didn't want to move, so it turned into an Airbnb. But it's an Airbnb that I've put in love and time in, and I'm very happy to share it with people, and I also make good money out of it. My new house doesn't have. I cannot make a ryokan. I cannot get a ryokan license there, but it will be a beautiful house. So I'll make something good out of it in the end. Good question. Yes.
With the Nakano house, I'm curious, how you found that, and
Yeah.
in general, like what the cost was. 'Cause, I mean, obviously, for me, finding a place in Tokyo or Greater Tokyo area would be ideal, but I don't see a lot of properties like on the Akiya banks in Tokyo.
So Akiya banks, I wouldn't go for Akiya banks in Tokyo. In this special case, there was a Chinese investor who bought the house for 22 million yen, I think, and like a super wealthy person. And she realized that she couldn't get the ryokan license. So my friend who knew someone at that real estate agency, hey, there's this house, do you want to buy it cheap? And I was just lucky that it was thrown in front of me. I paid about 17 million yen for it. Yes?
Are you doing any structural work to the home? Like, do you have to move the load-bearing wall?
Yes.
Do you need engineering?
I do.
permits?
I do. I work with a great team of people around me that love doing this kind of job. Most of the renovations they do is for like apato, putting in like cushion flooring and stuff. But they come to my gemba and they work with real wood, and they're so happy. So we put in concrete with chemical screws under the entire house. We're putting in sujikai braces in the walls. A lot of kanamono, like braces in the ceiling as well, and making the house sturdy. We're improving the house, but this is an unrebuildable house as well. So there are engineers and there are carpenters coming to assess the house, but you cannot get like it's signed that, okay, this is a brand new house, this is safe, but we're improving all the houses. Anzen daiichi. Yes?
Any advice on installing a second toilet, and do you use a car to be in the other one?
And do I use? A car. Whenever you go to a home center, they let you borrow one for free.
Really?
Yes. So you get a truck for about 2 hours. So you go there and you buy one plywood, and then you have 2 hours to play around with. Nico Nico Rent-A-Car and Nippon Rent-A-Car. I don't want to pay for insurance, and I don't want to pay for a parking spot. That will cost me a lot of money, and I'm only using it 2-3 days a month anyway. I work with my local lumber. They ship everything home to me. Monotaro, the same. Like, you don't really need a car unless you're far out in the countryside. Yeah.
And installing a second toilet, do you normally do that in your property?
I've never done that, but if I would do it like kind of on top of where the existing plumbing already is.
Maybe on the second level?
Yeah, I would do that. I wouldn't necessarily add a bathroom on the second floor because of water leaks and stuff, but I've never done it. Yes.
I really like how you lower the floors on the ground floor. Any pitfalls or things to look out for when you do that?
Very time consuming. Very time consuming. I wanted to do the same with the Nakano house, but in the end I couldn't do it because I had to basically cut concrete for a week in order to do it. So with the Sangenjaya house, I was really lucky. I could have done it like one part of the house in the Nakano too, but you would still need kind of a crawl space under for you want the house to breathe in a way. It really depends on what kind of foundation you have as well. Because if you have a nice foundation with like a concrete slab, what they do now is they put some kind of like pads that lets the house breathe instead of having like vents like in old traditional houses. So you would want it to breathe. But there are different theories about this. Some people say that the house should breathe, and some people say that you should shut the crawl space completely. But yeah, we have a builder here as well. Well, it always got to breathe, right? Yeah. Yes?
Somebody asked you if it's possible to get in touch with Isono.
Isono-san. He doesn't speak English. Does the person speak Japanese?
Would he be interested if the person can communicate in Japanese?
Potentially, yes. 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 Any more questions? Yes, here we have.
So, like I see
How? As an income, this I think if you pay with your, it's a hard question. You gotta have some know-how in what you're doing, and I think you gotta enjoy what you're doing, and I think that's the main thing. But
Did you set out to make did you set out as your end goal or the project as your end, like the
I just
journey
enjoy.
rather than destination?
I enjoy both, I would say. But this generates me a lot of money. Like the Sanginjaya house, $400 a night or something. So like
Price.
yes.
Which price is up?
Oh really?
Consultation.
Sorry, Tracy. But even in the countryside, you can still like rent them out as long-term as investment units. And then there's more hands-off as well. Like Airbnb, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of hands-on things. You got to be in there. You got to organize with cleaners, and then I live close by, and even then it's pretty time-consuming. But it's definitely viable if you know what you're doing. Yes.
What is your average cost for renovation?
I am trying to finish this new house at 5 million yen. But you never hold budget, whatever budget you set. So, yeah. No, I think maybe about 6-7 million yen, 8 million maybe. But that's not like, then my hours is spent too, right? And if you count that in, I don't know. I don't know what my hours is worth. So, yes.
Yeah, with your friend's house that had the fire,
Yeah.
and if that property was one of the ones where you're not allowed to rebuild,
Yeah.
then what happens? That becomes a car parking space, does it?
So these unrebuildable houses, as long as you leave one pillar, you can redo the entire house. There is a Sumitomo is doing this. It's called Shinjuku Sokkuri-san, and Sokkuri means like identical. So they leave one pillar, redo the entire house, and when the house is done, they remove that pillar too and put in a new one. So it's a new house. It's just on paper that it's an old house, but everything is changed really. So like, yes.
We have a Q&A panel at the end, folks, and you'll be able to pose many more questions to Anton and the rest of the speakers as well.
Is that all? Thank you so much.